Hey there, Texas. It's John Tipton and Robert Sines with the Texas Examiner. And we are so excited today to have some very special guests. And Robert, it's one of the things that we do at the Texas Examiner. It's not always about politics. It's not always about, what's going on. Crime. We like to spread this out a little bit.
Right.
Because it really is all about the quality of life in this wonderful place that we call Texas.
Yeah, it's all about Texas. And what could be better than learning more about our Texas history? And today, John, we have two special guests that are not just reenactors of the battles that we've had in Texas, but they're also historians. These gentlemen know their history, and not just Texas history, but even Mexico history. And because of these Texas, the U.S., and Mexico, we've been intertwined
for
a long time, and it's interesting to hear them talk. So I'd like to welcome today Martin Vasquez, portraying Santa Ana today, right?
General Antonio Lopez de Santana.
Martin, you're from San Antonio. And we have Richard Ramirez, who's portraying one of the Mexican generals, one of the top Mexican generals, right? Richard, who are you portraying?
Well, first off, my name is Richard Martinez.
What did I say?
Ramirez. You know that?
See, he's paying attention. Yeah, he's paying attention.
We're not going to edit that out.
No, let's leave that in there because that's to test our students on history, right?
Right.
And I really enjoy playing General Manuel Hernandez Castrillon.
Castrillon, not Castellon.
Castellón.
I've heard the name Castellon so much, but never Castrillon.
And he was a very interesting general. Out of all of Santa Anna's generals during that time, he was the only one who actually died during the Texas Revolution. In battle, no less.
Now, gentlemen, you are, thank you for coming out today in your full regalia. And this isn't an inexpensive undertaking. This is a very expensive project to do, and you all are not paid actors, correct?
It's a labor of love. We know a little bit about that,
right? I mean, we have some. Yes, we do, John. We have some gold bullion. Is that correct? And we have some stitching on these elaborate uniforms that are very expensive. It's not like something you can just go on Amazon and get, correct?
Absolutely. A lot of what you see us wearing is custom done, hand done, handmade. For example, my hat that you see that I'm wearing here, it's called a 4.5 chapeau. And this trim that you see on here, this gold trim, is actually the same trim that's actually on one of Santa Ana's original hats. It's a French trim, and I had to order it out of France. The trim alone was $700. So that gives you an idea of what this hat is worth.
Oh.
And I was going to brag about my Stetson the other day. I guess
no kidding, right?
Yeah, never mind. That's impressive.
It's an expensive hobby.
It is. And what drove you to do this, Martin? I mean, is this something you've always liked as a child?
I've always had a passion for history, especially military history as a child. And what actually hooked me into history was the John Wayne Alamo movie. As a child, seeing that as a kid, it would run on TV for like 3-4 hours with all the commercials.
Right. You weren't disappointed later in life when you realized that a lot of it wasn't accurate?
No, it didn't. It actually made me want to learn.
Okay.
So I was reading books early on about the Battle of the Alamo, and then learning about Napoleon and just the World War I, World War II, just everything interested me that had to do with military history. And obviously you mentioned, that was I disappointed? I wasn't disappointed, but it was interesting to find out that I wanted to find out everything about the Battle of the Alamo. So I started reading things about the other side of it. I had my dad help me. My Spanish wasn't the greatest as a kid.
Right.
And he would help me with some books that he found in Mexico about the Battle of the Alamo.
It's interesting, John, because I think I've shared with you back in college many, many years ago with me, I was assigned a term paper to research the Alamo, and I was disappointed because I thought, what is there to learn? I mean, I've seen all the movies. But my professor made sure that I had to provide references, including books from Mexico. And therein lied the challenge. And it's been a long time. Maybe you can help me, Martin. But I remember reading about a Mexican lieutenant. I think his name was Peña.
De la Peña.
De la Peña, right. And he wrote a book. He was a survivor. Right. And he gave his perspective. He validated some of the things that actually happened in the Alamo, but he also dispelled a lot of myths and, heroic acts that supposedly happened that really didn't. So it's really interesting.
And it's an interesting book because his perspective, as you read through it, he's not a fan of Santa Ana.
Right.
And he makes it very clear throughout the whole book that he's not happy with his...
And this is a lieutenant.
He didn't drink the Kool-Aid.
But I know a few guys like that.
Yeah. And he was at the battle, right? At the Battle of Alamo.
He's at the Alamo, but he will eventually wind up later on after the Alamo. He'll get imprisoned because of Santa Ana.
Wow.
Not liking what he wrote.
No.
and he'll be sitting in prison, and he'll keep on writing, still writing more, wanting to put out there what his experiences were.
Reminds me of the Apostle Paul.
Very good point. True. But today we're not here to just talk about the Alamo. We're actually here to talk about one of the first battles, Richard, that kind of lit the fuse, right? And that was the Battle of Gonzales.
Sure, the Battle of Gonzales. Everybody's seen the flag with the "Come and take it" with the illustration of the cannon. That's from the Battle of Gonzales.
Gotcha.
Very simply, the Mexican government provided the citizens of Gonzales with their own cannon. And the cannon was their first use against marauders, against Comanches.
Native.
It was just to protect
Show of
the
force.
town.
And is that
Exactly.
because the Texans were here and they were living here, and this was Mexico at the time?
Correct.
So they were legal residents.
Some.
Some
Yes,
were
yes.
illegally here.
Some
Sounds
were-
familiar.
Yes. So basically, there was the tensions, there was the discomfort amongst the community involved. So basically, the Texans thought, the Mexicans' army said, maybe the cannon is best in our hands.
So they wanted to take it back from them.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up Gonzales, because next weekend there's going to be a fantastic event in Gonzales, Texas, based on this battle, and the whole community comes out.
And you gentlemen will be there reenacting?
I believe, Martin.
Okay.
Yes.
This is October the 3rd through the 5th, is that correct?
It's
It's just a Saturday.
It's a Saturday event, the first week of October, first Saturday.
But there's a parade, there's a fair, there's a reenactment, so like the whole city's out.
Wow.
Big festival.
Oh, most definitely. If you've never been, it is worth the day trip.
So you
It
heard
is
it, folks.
definitely worth the day
Gonzales,
trip.
Texas.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the battle a little bit. John, how much do you know about that battle?
About as much as, a little more than the average person, I would think.
Yeah.
Pretty much just what we've talked about right here. I don't know any of the specifics.
But we all remember that flag, right? Come and take it.
Well, we do, and I think people use that flag to voice their opinions about other things. It's not exactly what it was intended for.
Good point. That's a good point.
The flag is so much larger than just that battle. You
Right.
see it all across the country, exactly, with different things.
So what led to the battle? Setting the stage, we had Texans living here in Mexico, which is now Texas. Some were legally here, some were illegally here.
Occupied Mexico.
Occupied Mexico, and yes. And then, so what led to this? I know Mexicans wanted their cannon back, and then the Texans said, "What? Come and take it. You're not going to get it back."
It was more involved than that, I think.
Well, obviously, we pull it back a little bit. It has to do with the fact that the government was wanting to expand on taxes on the settlements. And I know it's a word nobody likes to talk about, but slavery was one of the things that they were going to really clamp down on.
The Texans bringing in their slaves.
Yes.
And the
And
Mexicans
here's the
didn't want
thing.
that.
In Mexico, slavery had been outlawed in 1828. The president at the time was Vicente Guerrero.
Okay.
And Guerrero, which a lot of people probably don't know, but he was actually half black. So
Really?
he pushed to have slavery abolished.
Okay, makes sense.
Gets it done.
Gotcha.
Of course, we all know that even though slavery may have been abolished, there still was going to be indentured servants.
Yeah, sure.
So they were still technically still slaves.
Right.
However, the Mexican government clamps down on that. Here in Texas, they kind of took a little blind eye to it because a lot of the Mexicans involved as well had slaves as well.
Mm.
They were living in Texas. So, but at this time, the government clamps down. They start increasing taxes as Santa Anna's in power.
And didn't Santa Anna, wasn't it like a federal government that then he turned it into an authoritarian, or he became a dictator?
The Congress, and you'll get different stories on this, but Congress actually makes him dictator. He claims he didn't want it. They gave it to him, and he comes in and basically, he didn't even have to come to Texas as he's going to come to Texas, but he was one of those that preferred to be in the South. He was president. He steps down from the presidency, put down the revolution in Texas. How many presidents would do that? He did that. He did that. He stepped down because he preferred to be in the saddle and out on campaign. Even though he's president of Mexico 11 times.
He has no business being out in the field.
Elected 6 times, put into the office 11, but he didn't like being a politician. Like the money and the prestige that came with it, but he would rather be doing
So the
something
guy was
else.
popular in Mexico then.
Absolutely. To become president that many times?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay. Well then,
So the government clamps down heavier taxes. So the Texans are like, what are they doing for us?
right.
They really aren't doing anything
Right.
for the outskirts of Mexico. I mean, this is the frontier.
Correct.
So they decide, hey, you know what? You start seeing William Travis
Mhm.
making waves in Anahuac,
Mhm.
Texas, and other parts of Texas.
Right.
You're starting to see the revolution talk is starting. And so Mexican government's getting a little itchy. There's starting to be some confrontations between people in the streets. So they said, you know what? Let's take that cannon back. Let's start
So some
pulling
protesting
back some
then,
of
huh?
these things, so we don't have this issue. So the Texans say, we're not going to give back the cannon.
Mm.
So here down in San Antonio, they're going to send Lieutenant Castaneda with 100 Presidio troopers to go get back the
And
cannon.
these aren't newbies. These are seasoned troops they're
I'm
sending.
not going to say they're seasoned because the Presidios, again, this is frontier, so they're getting the least
Okay.
of anything.
And who's
It's
leading?
just bodies.
Yeah.
So you're
pretty
talking a lot
much.
about the Mexicans, but who's leading this charge in Texas? I mean, is there a certain high-profile individual that's kind of stirring the pot?
You've got you've got Fannin, Colonel Fannin, who's going to wind up becoming commander at Goliad. He is involved as well. So Fannin are heading this expedition. So you've got the Texans basically say, "Look, we're not going to give it back." So they find out that army's coming from San Antonio. They start reaching out to the other communities. Hey, we're going to need some backup. Come on over down to Gonzales, and we're gonna take a stand.
Gotcha.
So the Mexican army is going to arrive, and basically Castaneda was given the order: ride out to Gonzales and request a cannon. Do not start a confrontation. So he was actually told, don't fight for it.
Interesting.
Okay, if there's something happens, just come on back.
Okay.
So they get there, they're across the river. Mexicans are on the side of the river. They know they're coming. They make the flag. They show that flag and say, if you want this cannon, they had dug it in the ground to hide it. But then when they knew that the Mexicans were coming, they took it out and they
Because
decided,
they need it.
yeah, they decided to load it and they were going to use it.
Right.
And they basically told them, hey, we're not going to give it to you. So the Mexicans didn't know what to do. They spend the night there. Early morning, there's a big fog. It is really foggy. Texans come across that river. Nobody can see anything, but they start firing.
What river was this?
Is it
What river
Nueces?
is it?
Nueces or Brazos?
I'm not sure what river it is.
Okay. Okay.
You got me on that one.
Good. Yeah.
Oh,
Get that one out.
Nueces.
Yeah. I believe
Nueces?
Nueces played into it later in the
Nueces is further south.
U.S.-Mexico War later.
Yes.
But
Yeah, I don't think it's the Nueces.
okay, well we'll
Yeah,
look that
it's
up.
that further
I
south.
think it may be Brazos, but we'll look it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's so great about reenacting. It raises that interest, so you forces you to look things up.
Correct. Absolutely.
a
Anyway,
little bit more.
that's
So the Mexicans are awoken. They can't see, and they decide to just get back on their horses and ride out. We call it a battle. I mean, maybe 2 Mexican soldiers are killed. No Texans are killed. One gets hurt falling off his horse. So you have one.
Like my wife.
So it's a really small engagement. Mexicans ride back to San Antonio, but it's considered the Lexington and Concord of the
It's
Texas
amazing.
Revolution.
This kind of reminds me of what happens even in today's world, John. Where these little protests or skirmishes that we have across the country, you have politicians on both sides of the aisle that tend to, sometimes we got to be careful. They'll blow up some of these things.
Out of
Political
proportion,
gain, to stir the pot, and I find that history reminds me of that kind of.
But it took
stuff.
probably a couple weeks back then to get the same kind of reach that.
Yeah, now we can do it on social
instant.
media.
Yeah, so it took a while to react to
to
that.
stir people up.
I had no idea that it was that small. In the
Right.
back of your mind, you're thinking, "Oh man,
Yeah,
Huge battle.
everybody
really
shooting at each
small.
other."
So it was just
and-
small. Nobody really. It was no big deal. Just almost like a fist fight. And so what happens after that? I mean, what gets everybody all heated up and stirred up?
that's what's going to lead them to actually start forming committees to form a government
In
and
Texas.
to form a Texas government to declare independence. They'll start bringing us back to Lorenzo de Zavala. Lorenzo de Zavala is actually going to write the Constitution based on the U.S. For Texas.
And who's Lorenzo de Zavala at this point? He's with
So-
the Texans or the Mexicans?
He's with the Texans.
Okay, he's a Hispanic or Mexican.
He's a Mexican born in the Yucatan in Mexico. Basically, after his education, he became a writer, basically a liberal writer, and just started putting out newspapers and became very political. Started getting appointments in the Spanish government when Mexico was still part of Spain. Then when Mexico becomes independent, and it does eventually move out of the first dictatorship, emperorship with Iturbide, then he's pushing for all these changes for liberalism and he gets in trouble, gets imprisoned at one point, and then leaves, heads over to the United States for a little while. But he hears about them starting to, the impresario program was beginning with Moses Austin, Stephen F. Austin's father. And then he decides, you know what? I've got a little money. I'm going to invest in that as well. So he invests in some land here in Texas. And by 1835, he's going to come down. He has some land up in the Houston area, which we talked about already, with Castellón being buried out there. And then, so he is now invested in Texas because he's got land as well. And so he wants to be a part of that. He sees that Mexico's not doing anything for the Texas area and wants Texas to be independent.
So De Zavala's with the Texans then at
Yes.
this point. That's the De Zavala Road right here on I-10 here in San Antonio.
And
A lot of people don't even know that, right? I didn't know that.
And Martin, brings up De Zavala. But obviously, too, we're familiar with Juan Seguin. So you actually had Mexican citizens at that time who fought on both sides of the Texas Revolution. And so it tore up some families.
I get it.
Some families.
Original.
Yes.
And then if you go, and since part of the larger thing is Texas Revolution, you had a particular instance where you had brothers who fought against one another. And you had the case of, I believe it was Esparza, maybe, where a brother, a Mexican soldier,
Gregorio Esparza, and his brother was Francisco Esparza, was part of the Mexican army.
Was facing each other. And at the very end, one brother asked for permission to bury his brother.
I remember
He's the only one that gets a burial.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Because most were burned, right? And
All burned.
All burned, right? Yes. It's such tragedy. And we often celebrate the Alamo, but you hear the same names over and over and over. And that was what I learned when I started reading books outside of just, what was in front of me, reading other perspectives. There's a lot of tragedy, a lot of heroes from all sides. And it's sad some of those families probably have lost that history along the way. So Gonzales, then what happens at this point? Because Gonzales led to another battle, didn't it?
Gonzales is going to lead to the Battle of Béjar in 1835 in Bear. In 1835, it's going to lead to that. Prior to that, though, we missed two other smaller battles.
Okay.
Battle of Concepcion and the Battle of the Grass Fight, which was called the Grass Fight.
You heard of those, John?
Yeah, these are two smaller battles that take place in San Antonio.
Wow.
Prior to the Battle of Béjar. And this is still, we're still, the San Antonio is Mexican army's beginning to see that there's tensions are growing even bigger now that Gonzales has happened. And the Texans are building a force and they're advancing on San Antonio. So you're going to see the Battle of Concepcion.
How big of a battle was that, the Battle of Concepcion?
It's near the church,
near the Alamo?
near Concepcion Church, down by the Mission Concepcion.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you'd have a battle there. It's not a huge battle, maybe a couple of 100 Texians against 300 to 400 Mexican troops. The grass fight's even smaller. It happens, I think it's in November.
Okay.
Yeah, and then December we'll have the Battle of Béjar, where the Texan forces have decided they're going to take San Antonio.
And and Richard, not a lot of people are dying in these battles, from what I'm hearing, right? But there are, okay, but it's stirring up Mexico, right? It's getting Mexico pissed off because they look at it as this is our country.
Yes,
and you guys, it's like illegal aliens right now. We're going out in the street, illegal aliens from Mexico or Salvador, whatever, and we're doing the same thing.
And that's a really good point that you bring up, because the majority of the people that are involved in the fighting per se are not Mexican citizens. These are recently arrived Americans, see an opportunity.
Right.
And that's the majority of who's involved in the fighting.
Wow.
A lot of the people who are the Americans that are Mexican citizens decided touching this.
These people come from Kentucky, Mississippi.
Yeah, like I'm here to start a new life with my family.
Right.
I didn't want to get involved in a revolution.
Wow.
And some of the better known names of the folks he just described would be like Crockett and Travis.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they had established
illegals.
lives back
Illegal
east.
aliens.
Yeah.
That's
illegals in
amazing.
Tennessee.
Where was ICE at that time? Right?
I've always wondered how they became integrated into the issue, because they migrated from the east, from Kentucky and Tennessee in that area. I don't know why I never asked the question, well, what was it that drove them here? Okay, yes, you want a better life. And now all of a sudden you're going to become these great military generals and heroes.
And Crockett, wasn't Crockett a politician, John?
Yes.
And he was a
back
big
in
storyteller
He was
too,
senator.
right?
He was a former congressman.
Yeah, he was a big storyteller about fighting bears and alligators and all that good stuff. And back then there was no way to fact check anything, right? Like there is today.
Well, he played it up.
Yeah.
He played it up. And well, what happens was, the reason why he gets so popular with that was because there was a play that got started, and they did journals, little comic book
Right.
early that kind of highlighted this frontiersman
Dime store novels.
of who he was.
Yeah.
And he said, well, if that's what they're playing me to be, I'm going to have
Guess
to
I
play
better
that.
be.
And that's what
Interesting.
helped him get elected
Wow.
in Congress.
Some things haven't changed. Wow. So then Gonzales is still very important because that's the fuse. You have
Absolutely.
Concepcion, you have the grass fight, and then you have
Battle of Bejar.
Battle of Bejar. And is there any talk about compromise, peace at this time, seceding some land to the Texans? It's all just
No.
fight.
Yeah, it's
No
the,
peace
the
talks.
Texans. I mean, their decision was we're going to
Fight
push
all the
you
way.
out. We want the Mexican government and the Mexican military out of San Antonio.
Now, in fairness, you guys are dressed up as Mexican soldiers, but you all play both sides. Sometimes you play Texan, same thing. No, you're always.
I've actually, and I do portray Lorenzo de Zavala. I've done him for a couple of documentaries, and I just did him last weekend for a Tejano event down at the Briscoe Museum in San
Good.
Antonio.
I had to point that out because I don't want people coming after these guys.
And I'd like to add, for the sake of your viewers, we just briefly touched upon the Battle of Bejar. There's two great reenacting opportunities for the public to see.
Okay.
November 1st, at the Alamo, there's going to be a reenactment of the battle.
Nice. Free to the public?
It's free to the public.
Nice.
And it's going to be there on the Alamo grounds, there at the Alamo Plaza.
Okay.
And what they're focusing on, but it may be others as well, it's going to be the New Orleans Grays, because you had a group of folks come from Louisiana to help the Texans during the Revolution. And then there's going to be a group of Mexican soldiers as well. So they're going to face off each other.
We never hear about people from Louisiana coming over to help either. It's
Or
all these
refugees
little
usually.
details. Of course, the victor writes the history books, but
Right.
I've never heard of anybody.
Oh, yeah. So check out the Alamo website,
Okay.
because that way you can get more details as we get closer. There's going to be more information coming out to the public.
Will you gentlemen be there participating as reenactors?
I will.
You will. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And then also, too, in December, the San Antonio Living History Association is going to also recreate that battle. And it's something they've done yearly, and that's going to take place in the plaza in front of San Fernando Cathedral.
Oh,
and
good
that one
spot.
is also open to
Free to the public. Wow, that's
Free to the public.
so much to do, so much more to do and learn about our history here in Texas and San Antonio, John. I mean, hopefully we'll have these gentlemen back for some other battles and up to the U.S.-Mexico War. Because I know that's almost a whole podcast about, did President Polk lie to us or not? Right? You want to touch briefly on that a little bit before we close up today?
Sure.
About the U.S.-Mexico
sure.
War? Because we posted something about that the other day. It created a lot of interest.
So after the Battle of San Jacinto, of course, Mexican army is defeated. Santa Anna is captured. Mexico will never acknowledge that Texas is independent. So Santa Anna was signed on what's called the Treaty of Velasco.
Mm-hmm.
And there were two parts to that treaty. One was a public part of the treaty, and one was a private part, which is really strange. Two different documents that he signs. Well, the public one basically acknowledges that he's going to send back his Mexican troops back into Mexico, and basically is going to
Stay on one side of the Rio.
exactly
The Rio Grande.
well,
Maybe.
so Nueces at that time.
Nueces River.
So, and it basically end hostilities
Okay.
at this point. And it through the treaty was also acknowledged that he was going to be released. That doesn't happen right away, as he thought it was going to. But in the second part of it, they had asked him to basically acknowledge that Texas is now an independent from Mexico. He doesn't do that. Even though today, even in history books, you're going to read that Texas was declared independent and that Santa Anna acknowledges.
He never did.
That didn't happen.
Interesting.
In that second part of the Treaty of Velasco, he put down in there, and Santa Anna made a big deal about this during the negotiation, that now that I'm captured, I'm no longer in power. I can't make those decisions.
Wow. Technicality.
Exactly. He says, what I will do for you, I'll sign on this document that I will speak on your behalf to the Mexican government about the independence of Texas. But that part's always left out.
That's so smart. Never would have thought like that.
Would that be kind of the same in today's world, the rules of engagement?
I'm sure that's
If
happening.
a general
quite a
was
bit.
captured? Or...
I'm not sure. I think our generals today would probably want to be able to make that decision.
That's interesting. So then we have two kind of agreements.
Exactly.
So Mexico is still under the impression that Mexico belongs to them from what side of
Well, it's from the Nueces
from
River.
the Nueces River.
The Nueces River was always considered the border, which was higher than the Rio Grande. Okay. As I said before, so because of this, Mexico never acknowledges. So in 1842, we're going to have Santa Anna's back in power.
Hmm.
in Mexico, president again. And now he decides we're going back into Texas and we're going to take it back. He sent a force of about 2,000 troops, which wasn't a huge force, but he takes San Antonio back. And we have the Battle of Salado Creek. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. 42, which is right there near the Black Swan Inn. I don't know if you're familiar with that down in San Antonio.
Yes.
There's a battle there. There is a marker that shows the Mexican army had taken San Antonio.
Don't hear much about that.
We don't. San Antonio really didn't have a force at this point. They really didn't have an army to fight them. So they had to call in the Rangers. Texas Rangers are mounted up, come back down. Bigfoot Wallace is probably familiar with him. He takes part in this battle. They push back the Mexican army in 1842. Because, as I said, Mexico does not acknowledge that Texas is independent from Mexico. So in 1845, President Polk's in power in the United States. He decides, he coins the term manifest destiny.
Didn't he have a big ego? Wasn't he known as the president who?
Exactly.
He had a big old ego,
and he wanted to make the United States from sea to shining sea and expand the United States.
Right.
So he reaches out to Mexico about buying northern parts of the United States, Mexico, Arizona, California. Mexico says no. And by the way, you don't own Texas. So he's like, well, really? We don't. Okay. All right. So he decides he wants this land. He decides he's going to push American troops down into Texas and see if he can pick a fight. And he pushes them his troops over the Nueces River. Mexico saying, no, this is Mexico. They have troops. They engage. There's a fight. American soldiers are killed across that Nueces River. And now Polk says, oh, well, look what we have here.
U.S. blood.
We have U.S. troops killed on U.S. soil.
Blood has been shed.
And we need to go to war with Mexico.
And Congress bought it, huh?
Congress didn't totally buy it. There were a lot of people saying, we don't agree with this.
I believe Abraham Lincoln was one
Lincoln
that
was,
said,
exactly.
I don't buy this, right?
He has a big rebuttal on this whole thing of going to war.
He was like a
Mexico.
freshman senator or something like that.
Yeah, very young.
Right. Smart
He
guy.
was totally against it. There were a lot of congressmen in the North that were totally against it.
Didn't Lincoln say, prove to me that this happened? And
Exactly.
Wow.
That this was actually U.S. territory. And so he's able to get his war. Polk gets a war. However, the American government would not allow him to use regular troops. So it had to be a volunteer army. So he was able to get a volunteer army together. They're going to fight. They're going to then have two battles here in Texas that take place down in Brownsville area. We have the Battle of Palo Alto and the Battle of Resaca de la Palma. Both of those battles take part there. U.S. troops are going to be victorious, and then they're going to push. They were hoping that these victories there would then push Mexico to want to surrender and work at something out. Mexico will not do that. They will fight to the bitter end till they basically lose every major city. So this Mexican War will last about 3 years. And eventually Mexico will be defeated. Santa Anna will be brought back into Mexico. Real funny story about how Santa Anna gets back into Mexico. I don't know if you know this, but he wasn't president at the time, wasn't actually involved in anything at this moment when the Mexican War starts. And he's actually in exile at the time because he had mismanaged his government. He was all about the money, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And he during the war, after the Battle of Monterrey, again, U.S. wins. They think, okay, Mexico's going to want to sit down at the table and work this out. Nope. They just keep putting in someone else into power to fight him. So Santa Anna's in exile. I think he's in Cuba at the time.
Yes.
And he's sitting, there's an American liaison there and at this party, and he basically tells him, look, if you really want this war to end, get me back into Mexico and I'll end this. We'll work something out. Okay. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to see if I can talk to President Polk about this and see what we can do because, U.S. has got an embargo on the coast of Mexico. So, and they had a huge Navy already. So, and so he goes in there and comes back and says, okay, President Polk says, we can do that. We're going to get you. Oh, but wait a minute. I'm going to need to get paid.
My goodness.
And we don't know the exact amount. We know it was over $1 million.
In today's money or back then?
Back then.
Over $1 million back
$1 million.
then?
That was Bitcoin money back then.
He said, I need this money so that I can have troops behind me so that I can have the force on the government to shut this down.
Those little people out there working, just plowing the fields in the meantime.
That blows my mind, that kind of money.
So Polk agrees. They open the embargo to allow his ship into Veracruz, rides up to Mexico City. Santa comes into Mexico City, approaches the Congress and says, okay, what are we going to do to keep fighting? I have more money.
My
Army.
goodness.
So he totally dupes the U.S. government
Oh.
and does not stop the war. He continues it.
Oh.
So it's not a real, and I may have mentioned this the other day when we were talking, that this is not a very popular war in the United States. And the reason how you can see that is when you go into the library, any library, and even here in Texas, this is how big your section is on the Mexican-American War.
Wow.
On a
And it's
shelf.
shrinking.
On a shelf.
And it's shrinking.
Why do you think that is? It's not a popular war. We did something that may not have been the really good guys.
Right.
And we don't really want to talk about it.
Right. Just like our own lives. Most people don't want to talk about their mistakes in their lives. Right?
It's a really small deal. But you think about it, look at what this does for the United States. I mean, the discovery of oil in Texas.
Gold.
The discovery of gold in California all happens right after all this. So you're like, wow, the repercussions of what happens for the United States because of this war are huge.
Sure.
Our library is like this big about it.
Right. Well, there you go, John. About history is.
I'm still waiting to hear what we did that we're not so proud of.
Well, basically invading a country because we wanted more land.
Because of manifest destiny.
That's what it was about.
And creating a conflict that really
there shouldn't have been a conflict. Mexico, they were not as strong as the United States at this point, still struggling with, and the problem with Mexico was they always had leadership that were ex-generals, and these ex-generals just didn't know how to manage a country.
Diplomacy.
They didn't know what they were doing and constantly kept putting those type of people in power. So even if Santa Anna wouldn't have been, even though they call this the era of Santa Anna, all the others would have been exactly the same way. You would have had same type of people who didn't know what they were doing.
Interesting.
And if I can add, whenever they talk about American troops in Mexico to take out the cartels, and then you hear the president of Mexico, Shine Bob, say, no U.S. troops in Mexico, it's because of that historical precedent. It has never gone well for Mexico when U.S. troops, because that's not the only incursion.
That's a good point, Richard. When I was on the Border Patrol, it was a big deal about any of our agents inadvertently crossing the border to, even if we were in hot pursuit of a bad felon. It was very touchy with Mexico, and vice versa. I never could understand that as a law enforcement officer. It's like you're in plain view, you're chasing someone in hot pursuit, and he's a known criminal, murder. That border stopped a lot of things, and it hasn't changed, but it makes sense. We got to know our history.
There's reason for that. There's definitely a reason for that. And obviously, from what you can tell, he speaks with authority. Martin is very modest, except for when he plays Santana.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
But he is always in demand and speaks before museums, libraries, history groups. So
we're honored that you both gentlemen are here. Thank you, Martin.
But if I may take this time, because I think this is important to know too.
Yes.
Earlier, we had talked about uniforms. What we wear is based on information found in archives, Mexican regulations from the period. We have a sense of what they wore. So our uniforms are as reenactors, recreate what they would have worn at that time. The weapons we use were the weapons they would have used at that time.
And are fully functional.
Fully functional. So everything we wear is as accurate as possible.
And not a costume. We get all the time. We love your costumes.
That's a good point.
If you only knew how much our costumes cost.
And they don't look, they're beautiful. I wish our viewers could actually see them and see the material, but they don't look comfortable. Right?
They're not, but there's a reason for and a function for the uniforms.
Okay.
If you've seen the period weapons, they throw sparks.
Yes.
Sparks on wool don't catch fire. They also protect against blades, possible shrapnel, any more than a thin cotton would.
Wow.
But at the same time, there were cotton uniforms as well, because there were troops that came up from like the coastal part of Mexico, like Yucatan.
Veracruz.
Exactly. And they wore the wider uniforms because of the tropical nature of where they were at mostly.
Makes sense.
So our uniforms are very similar to what they wore in Europe, because that was the foundation of uniforms
Spain
at that time, in France. And a lot of the weapons we used were basically British surplus as well. So you see that influence in the Mexican army.
How informative, John. We have to do another one of these shows.
We have to, because
when November comes around for that November 1st event in San Antonio, and you said there's another one in December as well, right?
Up through April. There will be events through April. And also, if I could too, For those interested in reenacting, look up Primer Batallón on Facebook and also the San Antonio Living History Association's website.
Primer Batallón
Primer
and San
Batallón
Antonio
Living History
Living History
Association, Salha. And you can find introductory information and contacts that you can reach out to portray a Mexican soldier. And also, too, if you're interested in portraying the American side, the Texan side, the Texian side, rather, we can steer you towards the folks that can help with your impression there.
So you don't have to know a lot about history to be, I mean, you guys are going to help teach these newbies coming in.
Martin was my primary guide coming into this from the start.
Yes.
And he's very good with people as they come in.
Yes.
And you learn along the way.
Because even kids, right? Excuse me for interrupting. If I have a 10-year-old grandson that wants to participate in this, you would welcome someone like that as well, or no?
So we would, but because of insurance issues, they'd be regulated to musicians at this point.
Right, but they can participate in the reenactment.
Yes. And flag bearers.
Yeah.
Flag bearers. But so if John and I know nothing about Texas history, but we want to learn and we want to be reenactors, we're welcome.
Oh, yeah.
There's a little training involved and fantastic.
Not only that,
because that's intimidating to the average Joe.
I'd like to invite you at a future event. Maybe you guys can suit up and you can face each other.
Well, John and I have a little PTSD. I don't know if that's a good idea. He has it from the Army. I have it from the Border Patrol. That may not be a good idea. No, but seriously, I think that's a fantastic idea, and we welcome the invitation. I know we'd love to do it.
So I have an additional question, and it's way out in left field. So Santa Anna, was he a Mason?
Yes.
Did he give the grand hailing sign of distress?
We don't know.
Okay.
It's a good question. Basically, Sam Houston didn't even answer that question, and he was asked that. But I think a bigger reason why he's spared was not so much because he was a Mason, because Sam Houston was smart. He understood that if we kill Santa Anna, because they had already picked the tree. They had already picked the tree to hang him on at San Jacinto. And he understood that if we hang him, we just killed a president of Mexico.
And it will never end.
Right. And Mexico will send a huge force. They'll spend whatever money they have to spend to take back Texas.
Like John says, it will never end.
And he was smart. Because had they killed him, yeah, you're right. This would not have ended.
I'd like to add, too, I'm a second-degree Mason. And for you Masons out there, look up the history of Masonry in Mexico. Because in many ways, the political parties were based on the divisions in Masonry. Yep. You had those who supported the Scottish Rite and those who supported the York Rite. But that was no different than what was going on in the United States. So whether that myth is true or not, we don't know. But it is very probable.
So
definitely could have happened.
So much we don't know, John. And that's a great question, John. Thanks for bringing that up.
No worries.
And something we definitely need to do a deep dive in later.
Absolutely.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed our edition today of the Texas Examiner, studying Texas history. And we're just scratching the surface. This is the beginning. We're very honored to have these amazing historians and reenactors, Richard Martinez, a.k.a. Richard Ramirez, who's another friend of mine, by the way, and Martin Vasquez. Thank you, gentlemen, for what you do. It's a labor of love and a very expensive labor of love. So we appreciate you coming out here and doing this episode with us.
Thank you for having us.
And folks, again, you heard it here. There's going to be live events. And if you're really looking for something to do in this area, you're not looking very hard, because there's not only do we have your reenactors, there's other stuff going on, but this is where you can go to actually learn something, have fun, and learn something at the same time. So we highly encourage you to
bring the family, teach the kids.
Children love it, but also, too, we have women participate in reenacting as well. So there's roles for everyone.
Good. Thanks for bringing that up, Richard. Thank you so much. We'll hope to see you in Gonzales, Texas next weekend. I think it's the first Saturday of October.
Correct.
And we'll try to make it out there, and maybe it'll let us shoot some film. And hope to see you guys. Thanks again for being with us here at the Texas Examiner. I'm Robert Sines.
And I'm John Tipton. Thank y'all. Yeah, thank y'all for being here. And until we see you next time, be safe.
Lone Oak Photography. Or, as we like to say, real folks, real photos. Based right here in the Hill Country, Lone Oak captures life's moments with authenticity and heart, and keeps it affordable too. Give them a follow and tell them we sent you. Contact them on Facebook at Lone Oak Photo.